Assassin's Creed Mirage is an action-adventure game developed by Ubisoft Bordeaux, published by Ubisoft, and released on October 5th of 2023. Mirage is the 13th main installment of the franchise, with the 14th already announced and in the works. There are over 20 side games, and Assassin's Creed spans across a lot of media, like movies, comics, books, art books, coloring books, and more. Nods, cameos, and Easter eggs of characters and other Assassin's Creed staple mechanics are present in many other games ever since the first Assassin's Creed game came out back in 2007. The series is expansive, and its growth hasn't slowed down yet. With some controversial takes within the design of the games, with a smaller scale outline of Mirage proved to bring a fresh breath to the series, the PS3 was always a mysterious machine to me. It was hard to get, and scalpers were making bank. My uncle was able to get one of the first ones sold and then flipped it on eBay, much to my dismay. I ended up settling and asked my parents for an Xbox One for my birthday so I could play Halo with the rest of my friends. Astonishingly, they were able to get a PS3, and I dove into MotorStorm, Uncharted, and Resistance. My dad's friend also had a PS3, and he had Assassin's Creed and didn't understand what he had to do, so he gave it to me. That's where my love of the series started.
But until then, I will walk behind you every step of the way to remind you not to forget who you are.
Is that a threat?
I do not know.
I remember watching interviews of Assassin's Creed with Jade Raymond explaining how the game works. I remember her explicitly talking about how the glitches that pop up aren't actually bugs, but intentional elements within the game, and that it was a secret. I remember being very intrigued by this specifically. When I finally sunk into the depths of Assassin's Creed lore and mythos, I found that the modern day stuff was my favorite. It's the driving part of the story, and it's interesting and compelling to see how characters and plot lines intertwine and the resolutions and results of these dilemmas. So when it was said that Mirage wouldn't have any of that and not follow up on Assassin's Creed Valhalla's conclusion, I was disappointed. I figured it would be pretty boring just playing the game with the one typical assassin story, but turns out there are some nice surprises dealing with the Isu and other elements of the story.
We have it in all of us to mistake the shadows we walk for the light we serve. The time may come when we will be tested as he was. I fear that time is coming soon.
Assassin's Creed Mirage's story is pretty much run-of-the-mill in terms of an Assassin's Creed story. Handsome tough guy with a good heart is good at getting stuff done. Being down on his luck, the devious miscreant strives for more and ends up in the hands of the assassins by coincidence of seeing and doing something he wasn't supposed to see or do. A higher power of the Order forces him and the Guild to find the answers that he is looking for. The hero of this story is Basim, and throughout his adventure, he'll find allies, get betrayed, and come to terms with his issues, all while discovering something about himself. The story is trite, with this being a prequel to Valhalla, and also the sheer fact of this being a smaller Assassin's Creed game limits and hinders any sort of progress within the interesting overarching story of Assassin's Creed. All the twists and turns can be seen from miles away, and the political affairs that transpire are standard for an Assassin's Creed game. We as the audience already know that Basim is a special case, so there really are no surprises, consequences, or interesting story beats. Assassin's Creed stories have a weird misdirection for a while now, and even though this one is smaller and more focused, the orientation doesn't provide justice to what the story could actually be.
Not this time. Doing our jobs is never a bad idea.
The flow of the gameplay and its mechanics are great. Movement feels heavy and purposeful in a good way. The sound it makes when you pick up things is satisfying. There's a good sense of tactileness in combat and running across rooftops. Mirage is simply fun to play, and leveling up and getting better is addicting. Stealth, close-quarter combat, and parkour are the principal components of any Assassin's Creed game. Basim demonstrates these elements flawlessly by being agile and powerful, and the many different skills you can learn across the skill tree exemplifies these characteristics even more. Mirage is heavily inspired by the earlier Assassin's Creed games, where the emphasis of stalking and being careful is much more paramount. Basim has a large arsenal of different weapons to take down his enemies. Sleeping darts, smoke bombs, traps, and throwing knives are incredibly useful and all have their own application of when and how to utilize them effectively. These tools can also be upgraded to add different effects to them, like the duration of smoke bombs or changing sleeping darts into poisonous darts. Like past Assassin's Creed games, Basim also has access to Eagle Vision and a bird companion. Eagle Vision is used to highlight specific things in the area like enemies and chests containing useful items and resources. Basim's bird, Enkidu, lets you have an aerial view of the area you are in, giving you an advantage in strategizing your moves. If there is a marksman in the area though, they would shoot down Enkidu, making you either have to go in and execute your objectives blind, or you can target the marksman and take them down so Enkidu can fly freely. You can also hide and blend with the use of benches, haystacks, garden rooftops, wells, and people. A unique ability introduced in Mirage is Assassin's Focus, which when activated, lets you teleport around the area and take out multiple enemies at once. Leveling up and getting better is addicting. Aggressively or slyly taking down foes, using your tools efficiently, and going back to base and upgrading yourself is a gratifying gameplay loop, and honestly the only thing that kept me playing. Sneaking into forts and completing my goals without being seen or hiring a group of mercenaries and taking down everyone I see is always entertaining, especially with all the abilities and different gear at your disposal. Even just running around rooftops, watching enemies patrol an area, and hatching a plan to take them all down in the middle of the street is enjoyable. The Assassin's Creed games always have this sugary sweet quality to their gameplay mechanics that hit the dopamine levels in your brain just right that keeps you coming back for more. Baghdad's environments look good graphically, but nothing really stands out. You'll be seeing a lot of brown and dog colors. The actual world of Mirage is put together nicely and captures a more modern style version of the first Assassin's Creed. There are basically two cities with a desert in between them, and you can fully explore everything at your leisure. It seems big and vast, but feels tight and cohesive, which is refreshing compared to the large scope and direction that the past games have seemed to go in. One thing I noticed is that the conversations are so awkward, even more so than the other games. Weird pauses, characters talking too quickly as if lines were edited too close together, and just straight up strange dialogue make cutscenes incredibly cheesy and hard to ignore. Characters and their animations look bad. The standard for Assassin's Creed animation isn't even all that high to begin with, so the horrible facial animations stick out like a sore thumb. The voice acting is good, but whether it's good or not, it can't be sold with how bad the animation and awkward conversations can be sometimes.
Answer me this. What tea did my Basim like?
Ginger. with some turmeric.
Wrong! Basim does not like tea. Wow, Basim! Little Finch! Look at you all dressed up! Come, come, follow me to my stall. Away from this terrible man.
The game is fun to play, but other than that, I feel like it all trips on itself. The side characters are uncharismatic and forgettable. I've had objective markers disappear, text boxes not show up, one time I fell through the world, there's plenty of times where I got stuck on objects and had to restart from a checkpoint, trophy issues, etc. These are all pretty textbook problems with open world and sandbox style games and Assassin's Creed games in general, but it doesn't make any of it less annoying. The stale characters, their boring dialogue, an overused and exaggerated story that doesn't really make a dent in the overarching story, the monotonous environment, and bad facial animations really bring Mirage down a lot.
Traveler! What if you should sicken on the road? For the poor, for the pilgrim, for the man with no position to attend him.
Assassin's Creed as a brand is troubled. The first few games were a massive hit and momentous in the storytelling space, but ever since Assassin's Creed 3, where the decision was made to make this bigger than it actually was, the games have sort of been all over the place. The history of Assassin's Creed is simply dumb. There was a clear through line of where things were headed with Desmond and the Isu, but it was changed dramatically to fit the need to make more games. Now we have ideas like the Assassins and Templars looking for a Sword of Eden, fighting it, but just leaving it where it's at for no reason, like in Unity, and story threads like Desmond's son being thrown up in the air, but never being brought to light in any way. I mean, Juno, the main antagonist of the games, and an Isu at that, hatched out this entire plan of continually resurrecting her husband, who ended up creating a cult dedicated to her and bringing her back with the use of different pieces of Eden, eventually ended up in some datascape world, but was brought back to life in modern day with a new body, was killed off in the comics.
You're out there, aren't you?
And that's just one aspect that's just like, what? Why do these story beats get treated this way? This entire storyline of Juno, her husband, the cults, the pieces of Eden, the other Isu, and more is hinted at and seen through the games, but is ended in the comics? I can go on and on about the entire lineage of Assassin's Creed, but that's another video. It's just like, we've done all this stuff, and now we are at this point with Mirage, and it's just like, okay, well, what are we doing now? What's the point, really? I feel like these games could be a lot better than what they are now if they were just treated with care and created with a little bit of sense. Assassin's Creed Mirage is not a bad game at all. It is exciting and the great nuggets of gameplay are there, but it is just another Assassin's Creed game. I feel like scaling it back a bit was a nice step in the right direction for a game like this, but that doesn't excuse the problems the game has. If anything, it just makes them more noticeable. Mirage lacks innovation, variety, and interest. As a huge fan of the franchise, Mirage doesn't do anything special. It doesn't have to, but with what fans have been dealing with already, with the uninspired creativeness and misuse of the lore and story, Mirage just doesn't feel like that big of a deal. Assassin's Creed Mirage is a nice pickup if you want to go back into this world and play as an assassin, but other than that, Mirage lacks the soul that Assassin's Creed used to have and is desperately trying to find. I give Assassin's Creed Mirage a 5 out of 10.